"You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate." Those words were spoken by the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, live, on camera, in a United States Senate hearing room, and they were directed at a sitting United States senator who had just asked him one question. This was not the kind of thing that happens in Senate hearing rooms. Directors testify, senators question. Both sides stay within boundaries that decades of institutional tradition have established. What happened on September 16, 2025, broke every one of those boundaries simultaneously. Stay with this video, because what that question was and why Patel couldn't answer it is more important than anything he said. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted in November 2021 on 5 counts of sex trafficking and related charges. She received a 20-year sentence. She was Jeffrey Epstein's closest associate. Under federal law, sex offenders are explicitly barred from minimum security prison camps. That rule exists for a specific reason. It prevents individuals convicted of sexual crimes from being placed in facilities designed for low-risk offenders. Federal prosecutors had argued that Maxwell's crimes were among the most serious violations of human dignity they had ever prosecuted. The judge agreed. The placement restrictions were not ambiguous. In August 2025, someone moved her anyway. U.S. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche flew to Florida. He met with Maxwell for multiple days. The Trump administration had already announced it would not unseal investigation materials related to Jeffrey Epstein. Then, within 1 week of that meeting, Maxwell was transferred out of her federal prison into a minimum security camp in Bryan, Texas. No press conference, no statement from the Bureau of Prisons, no explanation from the Justice Department or from FBI Director Kash Patel. The transfer just happened, quietly. And then everyone moved on. Everyone except Adam Schiff. By September 16, 2025, the Senate Judiciary Committee had been running Kash Patel's first ever FBI oversight hearing for hours. Patel had defended the mass firings of senior agents. He had sparred with Senator Cory Booker in a shouting match that left Chairman Grassley banging his gavel. Patel had said, repeatedly, that he wasn't going anywhere, that the FBI under his leadership was the safest it had ever been. He had already survived 3 hours of questioning. Then it was Schiff's turn, and Schiff had not come to argue. He had come with something specific. What Schiff put on that table in 60 seconds is the part you need to see. He leaned into the microphone. He asked Patel one question: who authorized Maxwell's transfer to a minimum security facility? Patel answered immediately. The Bureau of Prisons made that decision independently, on their own, without input from anyone else. Schiff looked at him. He looked at the room. Then he turned back to the microphone. The Bureau of Prisons decided on their own, without any consultation with anyone else, that they will suddenly, after this interview, completely unrelated to this interview, completely unrelated to anything she said, move her to a prison unsuitable for a sex offender. He paused. You want the American people to believe that? One more pause. Shorter this time. Do you think they're stupid? What happened next is the part nobody in that room has been able to fully explain. Kash Patel had spent 3 hours defending himself, methodically, under pressure. He had deflected every accusation and managed every exchange, but no one expected what came next. He exploded. Patel's voice changed first. The measured tone he had used all morning was gone. He interrupted Schiff mid-sentence and raised his voice above every other sound in that chamber. I am not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates. What I am doing is protecting this country, providing historic reform, and combating the weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you. He wasn't done. We have countlessly proven you to be a liar. In Russellgate, in January 6th, he looked directly at Schiff. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward. The room erupted. Senators were talking over each other simultaneously. Schiff's microphone appeared to cut out, or Patel was simply louder than everything else in the room. Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley slammed his gavel. Once, twice, 3 times. Ranking Member Dick Durbin turned toward Grassley and said, loudly enough for cameras to capture it, "Take control of the situation." Grassley shouted back, "Both of you be quiet." Neither of them did. Patel kept speaking. Schiff kept attempting to respond. The microphones picked up fragments of both voices layered over each other. Grassley gavelled again. But here is what most coverage of that moment missed entirely. Everyone focused on what Patel said. Almost no one focused on what Patel did not say. He did not answer the question. In one of the most controlled government hearing rooms in the world, before cameras from every major news network, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation was asked who authorized moving a convicted sex offender into a facility that federal law says she cannot be in. And instead of answering, he called the senator asking the question a fraud and a coward. That is not a coincidence. That is a choice. And here is what Schiff actually had in front of him. The partial transcript of Maxwell's multi-day interview with the Justice Department had already been released. Buried inside that transcript was something the Trump administration had not addressed publicly. Maxwell had implied, without naming anyone specifically, that information she possessed would embarrass people currently serving in the United States cabinet. Schiff had that transcript, which means his question was not really about prison logistics, and Patel knew that. So instead of answering it, he buried the room in noise. Adam Schiff had led the House's prosecution during Donald Trump's first impeachment. He had managed the second as well, following January 6th. Trump had publicly targeted Schiff for years, calling him names, supporting primary challengers against him, and directing his administration to investigate him. Kash Patel had spent years calling Schiff a liar by name, in television appearances, in podcasts, in a book. The Trump administration had also launched a separate probe into Schiff, alleging he had received favorable terms on a Washington-area property loan, a charge Schiff denied as politically motivated. The two men had never sat across a table from each other in a formal setting before September 16, 2025, and the years of accumulated conflict between them were sitting in that room like a third presence. Every senator in that chamber knew what these two men thought of each other. Patel called Schiff a political buffoon. He told him to run to the cameras. He said Schiff cared about a convicted sex trafficker more than he cared about the truth. He said, "All you care about is a child sex predator that was prosecuted by a prior administration, and the Obama Justice Department and the Biden Justice Department did squat." Schiff waited. He let the room settle. Then he looked directly at Patel and said, very calmly, the sentence that circulated on every major platform for the next 72 hours. "You can make an internet troll the FBI director, but he will always be nothing more than an internet troll." Grassley ended the exchange, but something had already shifted in that room, because the moment a witness stops answering a question and starts attacking the person asking it, something becomes visible to everyone watching. The attack is not a rebuttal. The attack is an admission that the question had no safe answer. And every senator in that room understood exactly what they had just witnessed. After the hearing, Schiff released a statement. He wrote that Patel came to the Senate that day not to do his job, but to save his job, that the men and women of the FBI deserved a director who was not simply performing for an audience of one. Patel did not respond. The Bureau of Prisons released no explanation for the transfer. The Justice Department declined to clarify what was discussed during the Florida meeting. And the question of who authorized moving Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman serving 20 years for federal sex trafficking crimes, into a facility that federal law says she cannot be in, remained unanswered when the cameras left the room. It remains unanswered today. Schiff asked one question. Patel exploded, and the question never got answered. That pattern, question without answer, noise without response, is the story of that hearing. Because when the FBI Director of the United States responds to a factual question with personal attacks, that choice says something. It says that somewhere between the Bureau of Prisons, the Justice Department, and the Office of the FBI Director, there is an answer that someone decided should never be said out loud. There is a decision made by someone, signed off on by someone, that no one in that hearing room was willing to name. No congressional hearing room can produce an answer that no one is willing to give. And that is exactly what September 16, 2025 showed. And the room that was built to produce that answer went silent instead. The cameras packed up, the senators filed out, the gavel was put away, and Ghislaine Maxwell remained in a minimum security facility that federal law says she should not be in.